All right, so we're going deep today, diving headfirst into the world of magical realism.
Buckle up.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild ride, I
Oh, yeah.
think.
Yeah.
We're talking about a genre that bends reality and really makes us look at the world differently, maybe even, I don't know, question it a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah.
And to guide us through this journey, we've got Dr. Jaswant Rathard's work on magical realism, kind of like our map for today.
Great source, a great place to start.
Yeah. I mean, to me, just thinking about it, at first glance, you might think, oh, it's just like fantasy mixed with reality. But reading through Dr. Rathard's work, it seems like there's so much more to it.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely more than just like sprinkling some fairy dust on an otherwise ordinary story. It really gets you thinking about what's possible, finding that, I don't know, the magic in the everyday.
Totally. And it's interesting, Dr. Rathard traces this whole concept back to the 1920s, starting, surprisingly, with German surrealist painters.
Oh, yeah. Those guys were way ahead of their time.
Definitely. And then the term, kind of migrated to literature and became associated with some big names like Borges and Garcia Marquez. But one of the things that I found really fascinating is how this genre, it's not just limited to one place. It seems to have popped up all over the world.
Absolutely. It's a global phenomenon, which is like, to me, it really speaks to this kind of universal human fascination with blurring those lines, between what's real and what we imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's clearly not just, dragons and unicorns, right?
No, not at all.
It's something deeper.
Right.
So how do we actually define magical realism? What are we really talking about here?
Okay, so think of it as a subtle blend. You have these realistic settings, characters, situations, normal stuff.
The grounding. Yeah.
Exactly, the grounding. And then woven in, you have these impossible events just seamlessly happening. It's like, imagine a ghost sitting down for tea with you, or a recipe that when you cook it, it actually makes people feel certain emotions like, whoa.
It's wild.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, like, wait a minute, what's actually real here?
Right. That ambiguity is what makes it so captivating.
For sure.
And I know Dr. Rathod, he points to 100 Years of Solitude as a prime example of all this.
Oh, a classic.
Yeah, it's the story of the Buendia family, right?
Yeah.
And they experienced generations of these fantastical events all happening in this town, Macondo. What I find really interesting about that book is how Garcia Marquez, he uses those surreal elements to talk about really complex themes like family and history.
Exactly, and he does it in such a powerful way. Like, one example that always sticks with me is the recurring motif of the yellow butterflies.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever this character, Mauricio Babylonia, is around, these butterflies appear, and they represent this magical connection, a connection that defies rational explanation.
It's beautiful, too.
Yeah, totally.
And it really shows how magical realism isn't just about the spectacle, the fantastical events. It's about deepening our understanding of relationships, history, the human condition.
I think that's a really important point. It's not just surface level.
Definitely. And Dr. Rathard, he also mentions Beloved by Toni Morrison, which is a book that uses the ghost of a former slave to explore the trauma of slavery in a way that I think realism alone couldn't.
Couldn't even come close, really. It's such a powerful book because it forces you to confront the weight of the past, the lingering impact of history in a way that's just so visceral and thought-provoking.
It sticks with you.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's fascinating to see how authors from different cultures use magical realism to explore these, sometimes similar themes, right? We see that in like Water for Chocolate by Laura Esquivel, right?
Yeah, it's a wonderful book.
And she uses these magical elements, but in a different way. This time it's food that becomes, infused with emotions, which is just such a cool concept.
It's amazing. And what's so striking about these works, like Water for Chocolate, Beloved, so many others, is how they make us rethink our relationship with the everyday world.
In what way?
Well, it's not just about escaping reality, right? It's about finding new ways to understand ourselves, our emotions, and really see the world around us in a new light.
Totally. So moving on, Dr. Rathod also touches on a couple of, I guess, related concepts, things like metafiction and fabulation. Can you break those down for us? How do those connect to magical realism?
Okay, so metafiction, think of it as like fiction that knows it's fiction.
Self-aware.
Yeah, exactly. And it often breaks the fourth wall, like it's talking directly to the reader, reminding you, hey, you're reading a story right now. And actually, 100 Years of Solitude does this a bit. with the narrator kind of jumping in and commenting on the storytelling itself.
So it adds like an extra layer of complexity, makes you question the whole idea of storytelling itself.
Exactly. And then fabulation, that's all about like unrestrained invention, just letting your imagination run wild. It blends myths, fairy tales, reality, all into one, big, beautiful mess.
Yeah.
A great example of that is the Aleph by Jorge Luis Borges. It's a collection of short stories, and they blend philosophy, fantasy, surrealism in a way that just defies any easy category.
So it sounds like these genres, while they're distinct, they all share that common thread of pushing the boundaries of storytelling, just like magical realism.
100%, yeah. They encourage us to think outside the box, look beyond the limitations of traditional narratives and just embrace the power of imagination.
So I think we've done a pretty good job here diving deep into magical realism, its origins, characteristics. We've even touched on related genres. What would you say, what can we take away from all of this?
That's a good question. I think for me, the biggest takeaway is a question, actually. What if we all started to look at our own lives through this lens of magical realism?
Oh, that's interesting.
Could it help us see the extraordinary in the ordinary, Or even find new ways to approach the challenges we face, to find solutions where we didn't see them before?
It's a powerful thought. I mean, who knows? Maybe embracing a little bit of magical thinking could actually lead us to new insights and possibilities.
I think so.
Well, on that note, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the captivating world of magical realism. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as we did.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time.
See you then.